News from Guyana, the region and the world. Compiled in the Newstalk Radio Newsroom and powered by DemeraraWaves.com.
Good day with your major newscast. I am Jessica Sam. First with the highlights. The opposition is claiming victory for forcing government to say that Londoners will not pay more for electricity. A minibus driver in the Rupununi has died in an accident. In the region, Antigua and Barbuda is hoping 100% of its potable water demand. And you'll have your latest international news coming from the BBC. Do stay tuned.
Advertise with us on Newstalk Radio Guyana 103.1 FM for best coverage on programs on motivation, beauty and health, parenting and relationships, knowing your rights, and a variety of enlightening content, and get value for your money. Call our helpful staff today on 223-1056 or 223-1041 today.
Now for the news in detail. Leader of the People's National Congress Reform, Aubrey Norton, on Sunday insisted that the government planned to increase electricity bills for Londoners by removing a subsidy. The government last week suspended the management of the Linden Utility Cooperative Society Limited, LUSCL, citing several grounds for lack of accountability. Instead, a 7-member interim management committee has been appointed to manage the affairs of the company that supplies electricity mainly to Wismar and Christiansburg. Addressing residents, management, and members of LUSCL, Mr. Norton had accused the government of hatching a plan to remove the electricity subsidy, which would see Londoners paying more for electricity.
They are seeking to put the management that they control, and then they will be able to orchestrate it in such a way that they remove the subsidy and automatically the cost of electricity will go up. So you must see this as the beginning or the continuation of the previous fight to ensure or to get rid of the subsidy and our own struggles to ensure that the subsidy stays. And we have to do everything to ensure that the subsidy stays.
Prime Minister Mark Phillips says it is not true that Londoners will be paying more for electricity, and he denies that the government is planning to take away the Linden Utility Cooperative Society Limited.
At no time is the government interested in taking control of the Linden Utilities Co-op Society Limited. At no time will the government direct the affairs of the Linden Utility Co-op Society Limited, and at no time did the government mention or pass any instructions to increase the electricity rates paid by the people of Linden.
And the President Irfan Ali on Sunday said the PNCR leader was bent on misleading Guyanese. In ruling out an increase in electricity bills for Londoners, he says the People's Progressive Party will not do anything to erode its support.
When we came into government, we came with a banner, stronger together. We will do nothing under our leadership that would make us weaker. We will do everything under our leadership and this government leadership to make us stronger. Stronger under one Guyana. Beware of those that try to destroy distrust. Beware of those who try to instigate bad feelings against each other.
President Irfan Ali. Region 10 parliamentarian for Partnership for National Unity plus Alliance for Change, APNU plus AFC Jarman Figuera, says the opposition is responsible for ensuring that Londoners do not pay more for electricity. He says the leader of the opposition, Mr. Aubrey Norton has accused Vice President Barra Jagdeo and the People's Progressive Party to pull back on their intended plan to increase electricity rates for Linden and Region 10 and from removing the subsidy. The Region 10 National Assemblyman said all of the statements the PPP has put out have only reaffirmed Linden's firm position that there will be no increase in electricity tariffs.
What is also important too is that in their haste to respond to a fabricated lie they have themselves created, they would have committed to the position of Linden people that we will not accept any increase in electrical charges. So we had Jack Leo run out and say, we're not raising electricity charges in Linden. We had the Prime Minister did the same, but that has always been our fundamental position. So they now have publicly stated Linden people's position that we will not accept any increase in electrical charges, and we will hold them to that.
APNU plus AFC parliamentarian German Figueroa. The president of the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry, GCCI, Timothy Tucker, believes that one of the drawbacks facing local companies is their failure to offer shares to the public. Mr. Tucker says records from the Guyana Stock Exchange show that no company has made a public offering since 1994. He says there are advantages to offering shares to the public.
It has to be somewhere that you aspire to be. It cannot be that you want to do this by yourself and then you're locked when you become a medium-sized business and don't envision to grow your company. And then you wonder sometimes, maybe you joined the wrong organization or you're part of the wrong party, and then something changes and you become now the enemy of somebody. But then if you had opened that company to the public, then how can anybody go against a Guyanese company? And that is the purpose of taking your company public. And that is the highest point you can reach.
President of the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Timothy Tucker. A man who was driving the Anai Central Village Council's minibus has died in an accident in the North Rupununi. Dead is 48-year-old Lennox George of Anai North Rupununi. Police say the accident occurred at about 3:45 Sunday morning on Abina Hill Public Road. Two other occupants, 20-year-old Junilian Williams and her 6-year-old son, Julio Williams, both of Anai Village, North Rupununi, have been admitted to a nearby health center for observation. Investigators were told that George was driving the bus at a fast rate of speed when the vehicle ended up in a pothole. The driver reportedly lost control of the minibus and it struck a nearby tree. George was pronounced dead at the scene of the accident by a doctor from the hospital. Now for the news in the region. Suriname has imposed a temporary ban on a brand of chocolate known as Kinder. Star News reports that the Ministry of Health in Suriname says the International Food Safety Authority's network InfoSan Secretariat is currently monitoring an outbreak of salmonella in multiple countries believed to be related to the consumption of chocolate products. InfoSan has been informed through the European Rapid Alert System for Food and Feed that the affected products that may be related to this outbreak have also been distributed to Suriname. The Ministry of Health says the safest way to guard against salmonella is not to consume the Kinder brand of chocolate. Barbados is robbing itself by not allowing public servants to serve the public. This is according to a number of political scientists who agree the Public Service Act needs reviewing. The Barbados Nation newspaper reports that this is in light of the suspension and disciplinary charges being brought against 2 teachers who took part in the January 9 general election. Former Barbados Union of Teachers President Pedro Shepherd and Coach Alwyn Bob have both been suspended with half pay by the Ministry of Public Service. They're off the job pending the outcome of disciplinary hearings related to their candidacy for Democratic Labour Party's campaign, prompting cries of victimization from the party. Political scientist Senator Dr. Christina Hines, Dr. George Bell, Deveron Bruce, and Peter Wickham weighed in on the hot topic. And more in the region, St. Martin's Parliament is getting ready to hold its first consultation on the Charter of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. The expert roundtable is slated for April 19. In 2021, the Committee for Constitutional Affairs and Decolonization gave multi-party approval for the hosting of a high-level discussion. SMS News reports that the main objective to receive information and advice on designing an approach to amending the Kingdom Charter. Based on the proposal by a subcommittee of the committee, local and kingdom constitutional experts were agreed upon. These experts were invited to present a position paper in relation to a number of themes. These include the Charter of the Kingdom of the Netherlands as it relates to the United Nations in terms of decolonization and the democratic deficit within the kingdom. The panel consists of Dr. Nalda Aruin, Mr. Julio Ramnio, Professor Dr. Gerard Hoggers, and Mr. Renald Greenleaf. During the roundtable discussion, members of St. Martin's Parliament will have the opportunity to discuss and debate the themes with the panelists. The public will also be able to virtually submit questions to the panelists. And lastly, in the region, Antigua and Barbuda has decided to produce all of its potable water by desalinating more seawater. Prime Minister Gaston Brown says last year there were only 18 inches of rainfall, the lowest since records have been kept. He notes that using Antigua gets about 36 inches of rainfall each year, and that is already low. Antigua Newsroom reports that the Antigua and Barbuda leader says that lower than usual rainfall is due to climate change.
So it's evident that climate change is actually wreaking havoc, and we are suffering from these persistent droughts. Now, at no point in our planning, we expected that our rainfall would have fallen precipitously by a further 50%, because ordinarily at 35, 36 inches, that is extremely low.
Antigua and Barbuda's Prime Minister Gaston Brown. Here now is your international news coming from the BBC.
Hello, this is Julie Candler with the BBC News. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia's siege of Mariupol has destroyed the city and is likely to have killed tens of thousands of people. He was addressing Parliament in South Korea. Mark Lowen reports from Kiev.
President Zelensky said Mariupol had been burned to ashes and that tens of thousands of people are likely to have been killed there, a claim that, if confirmed, would be the highest number of dead in one area. Ukrainian Marines there say their ammunition is running out and speak of their final battle, adding, "It's death for some of us and captivity for the rest." The besieged city is one of 9 areas where new humanitarian corridors have been set up, although authorities say Russian troops are slowing down evacuations.
Austria's Chancellor Karl Nehammer has held talks with President Putin at his residence outside Moscow, the first EU leader to do so since the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Chancellor Nehammer said the issue of alleged war crimes in Ukraine and the need for international investigation had been clearly addressed. He said it was not a friendly meeting, but he felt he had a duty to seek an end to the war, or at least a truce. France's ambassador to Ukraine says 15 French police officers have arrived in the country to help their Ukrainian counterparts investigate suspected Russian war crimes committed around Kiev. France says it's the first foreign group to provide such technical assistance. Pakistan's parliament has chosen Shehbaz Sharif as the new Prime Minister. Mr Sharif, whose brother Nawaz held the same job, was selected at a chaotic session in Islamabad, where opposition MPs staged a walkout of the ousting of Imran Khan. Sekunda Kamani is in Islamabad.
Shehbaz Sharif is a well-known political figure here. He served as Chief Minister of Punjab, the most populous province in Pakistan under the previous government before Imran Khan came into power. He had a reputation of being efficient, hard-working. He was credited with bringing in a number of major infrastructure projects, but he's also been accused of corruption, though he has not been convicted of any offence, but he has spent some time in jail during Imran Khan's tenure. He denies any wrongdoing, saying that the allegations are politically motivated.
The number of people killed by gunmen in a series of raids in Nigeria's Plateau State has risen to more than 135. Isaac Khalid reports from Abuja.
The gunmen on dozens of motorbikes attacked at least 4 remote villages in Kanam local government area of Plateau State on Sunday, shooting people dead, stealing livestock and burning down dozens of homes. The victims include young men and children. Hundreds of people have been displaced, some are still missing. Residents are complaining that security forces took nearly 24 hours to arrive following the attacks. They say this is the worst violence they have ever known in the area.
World News from the BBC. UN officials in Somalia say 350,000 children are at risk of dying in the next few months as a result of the worst drought there in a decade. 1.4 million children are already severely malnourished. The price of food and water is surging. The drought has forced many schools to close. There are reports of children being forced to marry as their parents cannot afford to feed them. A court in London has found a 26-year-old follower of the Islamic State militant group guilty of the murder of a British MP. Ali Harbi Ali stabbed Sir David Amess to death in October last year. During the trial, Ali claimed his victim deserved death for having voted in favour of British military action in Syria. Reverend Steve Tinnings was a friend of the MP.
When you know someone that has suffered the way that David did, it is difficult to hear the details and to watch the body cam footage of the tragic events on the day. David, for me, was somebody that was incredibly compassionate, and the primary reason I knew him was through some of the work that I do for refugees in the town, including Syrian refugees.
The Chinese city of Shanghai is to begin relaxing some coronavirus restrictions, despite a continuing rise in the number of daily cases. Shanghai residents have been under lockdown for at least 2 weeks, with growing complaints about a lack of food and medicine. Businesses have been hit. Researchers at Imperial College in London say a psychedelic drug compound found in so-called magic mushrooms may be beneficial to mental health. The study said patterns of negative brain activity in people with depression can be rigid, but after therapy using the drug psilocybin, they become more flexible. The findings are based on analysis of brain scans from 60 patients who've been receiving treatment for depression. BBC News.
Here now is a recap of the highlights. The opposition is claiming victory for forcing government to say that Londoners will not pay more for electricity. A minibus driver in the Rupununi has died in an accident. And Antigua and Barbuda is hoping to desalinate 100% of its potable water demand. And you had your latest international news from the BBC. And that there was your major newscast. I am Jessica Sam.
This has been the news, compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom. For ongoing updates, visit demorarawaves.com, and you can check facebook.com/demwaves and twitter.com